Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA Daily Analysis. NVIDIA took a little dip today as I expected in my yesterday video. In this video, we'll discuss NVIDIA stock price movement for today and try to make an assessment for next few days using technical charts, fundamentals, and the latest data. We'll also take a look CPI or inflation data that is due tomorrow. Now, let's get started. Starting with the daily summary, Nvidia opened at 134.11. It made a high 134.52. It made a low 131.38 and it closed at 132.65. That is 0.18% down. In my yesterday video, I discussed two possibilities for Nvidia price movement for this week. One, Nvidia continues to go up. Second, Nvidia might take a little dip in a day or two. Then again, we'll get some momentum to go further up. So in today's movement, you see Nvidia took a little dip today, but overall, you see there was no clear direction. So price movement for Nvidia was volatile today, and tomorrow I'm expecting the same thing, a sideways movement tomorrow as well. So one of the reasons for today's slowdown, in my opinion, is Nvidia was going up 5 days in a row with no correction. So today or maybe tomorrow, there was a day for correction for Nvidia. Moving on, last 5 days, Nvidia is still up about 9.7%. Last 1 month, Nvidia is still up 24.59%. Last 6 months, Nvidia is still up 55.42%. And year to date, 175.38% up. But still, Nvidia has more room to go further up before the next earnings, even if it's up about 175% in last 9 months. But overall, for the whole market, it was not a bad day today. It's starting with S&P. You see, S&P was up about 0.71%, and Nasdaq is up about 0.60%, and Dow Jones is up about 1.03%. And there was clear direction today in all three indices. It was up. And one of the reason, in my opinion, for positive closing for the whole market is number one, FOMC meeting minutes. And the meeting minutes, were all positive overall regarding the inflation and the labor market. As you see here on my screen, the PDF version for the FOMC meeting minutes. You can further take a look the meeting minutes, but I already went over this. The summary I would say is this one that says consumer price inflation was well below its year earlier rate but remains somewhat elevated. The Fed is acknowledging the fact that CPI is gradually going down, and that's a good sign, and remains elevated probably is a caution sign, but not a bad sign because inflation is coming down every month. So that's a good sign. And the second reason is the geopolitical scenario. You know, we haven't seen any retaliation from Israel to Iran. So that's a good sign for the market. So even if there is an escalation between two countries, I do not see a major escalation is going to happen in the coming future. Now let's take a look forward P for Nvidia. Nvidia forward P at this point is at 43.07, slightly below than last week closing, but is still above 40. It's a good sign that Nvidia got the positive momentum and trading above forward P of 40. Palantir 126.85, having a very good time today as well. SMCI 14.88. SMCI went up as well today, about 4 or 5%, and that's a good thing for me because I had SMCI shares. AMD slightly down from yesterday and also from last week closing is 44.42. Now let's take a look percentage change analysis for Nvidia. You see at this point, based on the cumulative percentage change, Nvidia is up about 13.56%. from the previous earnings announcement. And this is the second month from the previous earnings announcement. And you also notice that before today, last probably 5 or 6 days, there was no negative closing for Nvidia. So the correction was due today or tomorrow. Having said that, 13.56% up in this quarter is not much comparing with the historical data. Because in the last quarter, Nvidia was up about 32% in just one quarter, and one quarter prior, it was up about 38% in just one quarter. So at this point in this quarter, just 13.56% up. So more room to go further up. Now let's take a look technical charts for Nvidia. You see 180-day hourly interval chart for Nvidia and also the Bollinger Bands. So as we noted yesterday, Nvidia stock was above 20-day moving average, that's a blue line, and it was trading above the blue line for last few days. And I compared this behavior with this one yesterday, and looking at this behavior, you see that after reaching somewhere here, it got some correction. So similar movement you see in today's stock price for Nvidia. So going up somewhere here, it started going down. So it got some correction. So at this point, it's below 20-day moving average. So there is some negative momentum on Nvidia, but not too strong. Now let's take a look Fibonacci levels. So based on the Fibonacci levels, the next level of support is at 125. At this point, Nvidia is trading around 132. So as we noted yesterday, the next level of resistance is at 140, and there was no major resistance after 130, in my opinion. But at this point, it looks like Nvidia is moving sideways and having some correction because last 5 or 6 days, Nvidia was going up in a row. And again, this is my opinion, and I also shared my opinion yesterday. I do not see Nvidia to break 140 anytime this week. Probably we'll have to wait until next week for that to happen. And that would also depend on the data or events regarding Nvidia happens next week. Now let's take a look some news regarding Nvidia. Starting with this one that says Nvidia nears a record high. What TSMC sales mean? So as we noted, Taiwan Semiconductor, the biggest supplier for Nvidia, reported 40% rise in its September sales from the same month last year. So sales are good, and also the future outlook is good for TSMC. So that tells Nvidia also has the good future outlook. So in the next earnings, probably TSMC might report better than expected revenue numbers and also good revenue guidance. And I'm not sure about the earnings or the EPS. Earnings or the EPS might get a little hit. Let's take a look this one that says a look into Nvidia price over earnings. Let's open it. So it says that over the past month, the company's stock went up by 12.90%, and in the past year by 181.16%. The shareholders might be interested in knowing whether the stock is overvalued. That's a good point, but in my opinion, no. Nvidia stock price is not overvalued at this point because the forward P is still below 50, right? So, in my opinion, that's not an overpriced situation for Nvidia. And this one looks to me an interesting post on X that says as Nvidia's GB200 nears mass production, more components are gaining new suppliers, which help reduce cost and improve quality control. It also signals rising competition within the supply chain. So that's a very good point. And if I read between the lines, probably if the cost is going up, from their suppliers, probably that can impact the earning per share numbers or the earnings growth for Nvidia compared with last quarter to this quarter. So we'll see how they report the earnings number in the next earnings. So that will be interesting. So most of the news is about TSMC sales for the last month. So this one and also this one. We already talked about that. Scrolling down further. And this one is about Kathy Wood, and she keeps investing on AI stocks, and this time on AMD shares. And so, probably in her opinion, that's a good time to expand the investment in the AI market. So, looking at all the news, I do not find anything different from yesterday. So let's move on. Let's take a look other AI stocks. In my AI watch list, most of the stocks are green today, and highest positive change is on SMCI, that is 4.28%. NVIDIA, SoundHound, and AMD are negative today. But overall, it's not a bad day today for the AI stocks as well. Now let's take a look inflation data that's gonna be reported tomorrow. So as you see, the actual last month came 2.5% versus the forecast 2.5%. Exactly match the forecast. But before that, last 3 months, it came lower than the forecast, and that was a good sign. In this month, the forecast is 2.3%. I'm guessing the actuals might meet the forecast, and that will be a good sign for the overall market. Let's take a look. Core CPI. Core CPI is somewhat inflated, is above 3% still. The last time the actual was 3.2% versus the forecast 3.2%. So it matched 100%. This cycle, the forecast is 3.2% as well. Let's see if the actual match the forecast. So in my opinion, I'm guessing the actual might come lower than the forecast. We'll see what happens tomorrow. So I guess that's all about NVIDIA analysis and assessment for today and next few days. So if NVIDIA drops probably about 3-4% in next few days, that will also give a good buy point to those who missed this opportunity to buy more NVIDIA shares. But if NVIDIA goes up in next few days, and that's a good thing for us, we keep holding NVIDIA stocks. I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more tomorrow. Take care.